diverse voices in the energy revolution. Here's your host, Amy Simpkins. Welcome back to the Power Flow podcast. I'm your host, Amy Simpkins. Today, I have guest Katherine Lucey here with me to talk about empowering women entrepreneurs around the world, particularly in Africa. Katherine Lucey is founder and chief executive officer of Solar Sister. Katherine is a Schwab Foundation Entrepreneur of the Year and Ashoka Fellow, and a Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation entrepreneur. She has received recognition and awards for her work with Solar Sister, including Forbes 50 Over 50 Women of Impact, Clinton Global Initiative, Social Venture Network, C3E, and International Center for Research on Women Champion of Change Award. She holds an MBA from Georgia State University and a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Georgia. Prior to becoming a social entrepreneur, Katherine spent over 20 years as an investment banker on Wall Street, providing structured finance solutions to the energy sector. Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm a huge fan of podcasts and listen to them all the time. And so it's really fun to be on the other side of this.
Awesome. It's been the podcasting journey. I love the conversations that podcasting creates. And to me, it's in conversations that, we really find the inspiration and innovation we're looking for to move the industry forward. It's you can't do anything in a vacuum. So
absolutely.
So great. I would love for you, we had a great introduction to who you are, and I definitely want to hear more about yourself. But first, tell us about Solar Sister. Like, what is it? What do you do, and how do you empower women in energy?
Solar Sister is a nonprofit social enterprise. And what that means is we use business methods to create impact. And the way we do that is we work with women to help them become entrepreneurs in rural communities in Tanzania and Nigeria. And they are building clean energy businesses, bringing light and energy to their rural communities where they don't typically have access to electricity. And so these women are really transforming the lives of their communities. People who are lighting their homes with candles or kerosene now have clean energy, solar-powered lights, home systems, clean cook stoves that they can use in their homes. And it's all done through typical business style. So the women are purchasing the products, they buy inventory, they sell it to their community, they're earning a profit that they get to keep. And so the two big impacts are the access to energy for the community and the women's economic opportunity for the women's entrepreneurs.
That's brilliant. And I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship and using business as a force for good. I think, so being able to not only support the planet and see more clean energy out there, but then also support actual humans with that energy and with the revenues that's coming in from the business. Like, holistic solutions are my favorite thing. And to me, this is like an ultimate holistic solution. So I have a whole pile of questions about this because I'm so fascinated by the model. So let's just dive in. So tell me about the technology. It's mainly lights and cooking. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. We're focused on household energy. And so it's lights to light up your home, or in this case, the home of women living off-grid in rural Africa. And it's everything from a simple light that you would use to just light the task that you're doing, whether that's cooking dinner for your family or your child studying at night, doing their homework, or taking the light. It's a portable light. You can take it out to go to the latrine outside, make sure you're not stepping on something you don't want to step on or something like that. Anything from that very simple light to larger home systems where they install solar panels on the roof and are able to string up 3 to 5 separate lights in different rooms in the home, and a socket, and power up maybe a fan or a small radio or even a small television. This really gives people the experience of having a fully lit, electrified home, even though they're miles and miles from the nearest grid connection. And it just transforms lives. People who, the kerosene lamps that they would have used before are toxic. The smoke is just terrible. It causes so much indoor air pollution, and both women and children really have issues with breathing in all that smoke. It's also, kerosene is flammable, so it's causes many burns and fires, and it's poisonous to drink. So some of the really tragic stories we've heard are where the woman will go to a local petrol station to fill up a Coca-Cola bottle with kerosene and bring it home to put it in the lamps and put the excess up on the shelf. But being in a Coca-Cola bottle, the child sees it and thinks, there's my Coke, there's something I want to drink, and then drinks the kerosene. So something like a small solar lamp just is, changes everything. It's safer, it's cleaner, it's better for the environment, it's better for their health. And probably most important to them, really, on an immediate basis, is it is so much cheaper, because kerosene is an incredibly expensive fuel to burn for light. So by having a solar lamp, which you put outside during the day, it collects the energy from the sun. You bring it inside at night, and you click it, and you have light throughout the whole evening. And then the next day you put it out again and recharge it, and again and again and again. And so families are able to save the money that they used to spend on kerosene and use that money in much more productive ways. Rather than the money literally going up in smoke, they're able to spend that money on something like their children's education, or better food for the family, or put it aside in case there's a medical emergency, or invested in a business. And so the change at the household level is not just that it's clean energy and that's a good thing to do, for the planet or something like that. Going green is not just a luxury. It's actually, in this case, going green is really beneficial for economics, for health, for safety, and just so compelling of a choice.
No, it's really one of my favorite books lately has been Donut Economics by Kate Raworth. And it really is bringing people into the donut, right? Where it's like a safe and just space for humanity, where humanity's needs are getting met just all over the place in all these ways. And also in a safe and just space for the planet as well. I love it. And it's interesting that you bring up like putting the kerosene in a Coke bottle, like just so the listeners like are aware, if you haven't traveled widely, like this happens. This is not just like a rural Africa thing. Like this happens like all over the world. I've seen it particularly in Southeast Asia, that like, roadside stands that, they sell like grab and go petrol or gasoline, like in 2-liter Coke bottles. And like you can literally buzz in on your motorbike and grab a 2-liter of gas and, pay for it. And then like, it's like, you've got it, no need for a pump even, it's different to the infrastructure that we have in the United States of like a pumped underground tank on every corner, like doesn't exist and isn't in those parts of the world. And so it's funny because when I saw that, well, I don't know funny, but when I saw that in Southeast Asia, like it didn't register as like, oh, a kid might drink this, like it's in a drink bottle. I mean, I thought about the fact that it wasn't like, a certified chemical container, but that was kind of where my thought process stopped with it. But you're so right. Like, like labeling problems, branding problems. A kid sees that bottle shape and it registers as Coca-Cola and not as gasoline or kerosene. So I'm curious about these systems. So you mentioned that there's some like kind of standalone systems, and I would assume they have some, ability to store energy. Like you said, you put it out during the day, and then they're able to bring it in and use it at night. You also mentioned, larger scale systems of actually putting out solar panels. Is there storage involved in those systems? And, who's responsible for putting those together and installing those systems?
Yeah, I wish I could show you, but being a podcast, I'll just have to describe it. And then if anybody who's listening wants to go to our website, it's solarsisterallruntogether.org. We have products on the website that you can take a look at and see what we're talking about. But I'll try to describe as best I can. The smallest ones are very simple solar lamps. They're just a single light that it is fully integrated, and so on one side is a LED bulb, and then built into it is the solar panel, and also built into it is a battery. So that the solar panel, you put the light outside, the solar panel will collect draw the energy from the sun, charge up the battery, and then you bring it inside, and you can push a button, and it provides light. Usually they have varieties of. You can push it once and it's the brightest light, or push it twice and it's half dimmed, and then push it 3 times and it's on a very dim setting. And that's going to give you different hours worth of lighting. But in all cases, you have enough, even at the very brightest setting, you're going to have enough from a single day charge to get you through 6 hours at night. And if you put it on the half setting, which is actually still quite bright, you'd make it through like 12 hours. And on the lowest setting, you can make it maybe 30 hours or something like that. And so what these do is they are the direct replacement for the little kerosene lamps we're talking about. And just to also to picture in your head, the kerosene lamps that are used in Uganda, perhaps they're called dodobas, and used throughout East Africa and also West Africa. This is not like some nice kerosene lamp that you take on a camping trip, like that you would buy from REI. What these kerosene lamps look like mostly is if you took an old tuna fish can and stuck a hole in it, and you poured kerosene in there, and then you got the tuna fish out somehow, but you put the kerosene in there, and then you put a piece of string down in that hole, and you light it. It looks like truly, it just looks like a little can, like a little tuna fish can that you light up. And so again, if you think about just the safety issues of that are incredible. But the solar lights are a replacement for that. And so they're brighter, and as we talked about, safer and cleaner, and cheaper for using. Up from that, we have solar lights that also can charge phones. So they'll have a USB or a phone charge plug. And so again, you take the lamp, it either has an integrated solar panel, or it might have a separate solar panel that you plug in. It'll have the battery integrated, and it can charge up enough that it provides light, and also you can charge your phone from it. And so one of the key things is in sub-Saharan Africa, the percentage of people who have access to electricity, especially in the rural areas, is very, very low. It might be in some places it's like 10% of people have access to electricity, but something like 90% of people have a cell phone, which brings up the question then, how do you charge your phone, right? You can't go home and plug it in. And so what people do is they take their phone, probably one of their most valued possessions. I guess that's global. It's one of my most valuable possessions too, Right. And you take your phone and you go into town, and you may have to walk quite far to get there, but you go into town and you hand over your phone to the guy or the woman who runs a little kiosk, and their business is to charge phones. And so they'll take your phone and they'll plug it in, and then you pay them an amount, and they charge it up for you and give it back to you. It takes about an hour or so to charge up your phone, and you can either sit there because this is your phone and you don't want to walk away from it, or you can go around and do your errands and then come back later, pick up your phone, pay them the 25 cents or whatever it is to charge up your phone.
And how are they doing that? Are they doing that on like a diesel generator or a gasoline generator?
Yeah, so depending, like in town, they might have access to electricity. They might have, the grid might come into town, and so they've got some connection there, or a generator or something like that. So that's how people often charge their phones. But you can think of all of that wasted time and labor. You're walking into town, you're waiting for your phone to charge. I know I never anticipate when my phone's going to be out of, when my battery's going to run down and I need it right away. And so to think that, you always have to be anticipating, okay, when am I going to get my phone charged during the day when the shop is open and I have time to get there and get back and all that. So it really is a big part of people's, it takes up a lot. And so to have the ability to charge up your own phone at home when you need it, you can put the lamp out during the day, and then at night while you're sleeping, plug your phone in and have it charge up while you're sleeping. It's just exactly the way you would do it, right? And so that really is really popular because people, being connected is such an important part of living now, or I guess always, but using our cell phones to stay connected, people, it's so valuable. I think people would sit in the dark and talk on their phone if you made them choose, do you want light or phone? So it's really important to have this phone charged. That's one of the products that we sell. And then one of the ones is a home system where, as I said, 4 or 5 lights that can really make the experience of the home feel like a fully connected home. And that just really changes how you live in your home. And then we also have cook stoves, and these are not solar-powered cook stoves, but they're fuel-efficient cook stoves. So most people are cooking over open what we call 3-stone fires, which is exactly what it sounds like. You take 3 stones and you build up a fire on the inside of it, and then you put the pot on the 3 stones. You balance your pot on those 3 stones, and that's how you cook. And so efficient cook stoves replace that 3-stone, very inefficient way of burning by designing the stove so that it burns fuel efficiently. And it'll use up to maybe, a third as much fuel. So if you're a woman who has to go collect firewood every day to cook dinner, again, that just takes so much time and labor. And it's horrible for the planet, to be collecting all that wood and burning it. And by buying an efficient stove, you're immediately reducing, the time, the labor, the cost. If you're burning charcoal, again, it's very expensive, and so much better for the planet because now you're using so much less of the fuel. And it's producing much less smoke. And that gets back to the indoor air pollution in homes. If you're, cooking over a stove inside and it's producing all of that smoke in your house, it's, and the women, of course, are the ones who are responsible for preparing the meals, and they're the ones who are breathing in all those fumes, and the children at home with their mothers are breathing in all those fumes. So, death by air pollution, indoor air pollution is one of the leading causes of death in these communities. So reducing that, improving the household air quality, improving their economics, their cost of labor, the time that they spend collecting firewood, all of this just has incredible impacts for the women and for their families.
For sure. So how do you recruit women into the program?
So Solar Sister is run, like I said, it's run like a business. And so women become Solar Sister entrepreneurs. And we go into a community. We're based in Nigeria and Tanzania, and our staff there is all local. So we'll have in Tanzania, it's a local Tanzanian woman who's going out into her community, and she'll reach out to the leaders in that community, find out who are some of the strong women leaders, and approach them and say, we have this Solar Sister business opportunity. Who do you know that you would recommend who's going to be a strong businesswoman who would like to take on this opportunity. And so they'll get recommendations sort of by word of mouth for women who might be interested, and then they'll pitch them the idea. Here's a business that you can run, this clean energy business. You can earn income, you can bring clean energy to your community, and women will take a look at it and they get it. I mean, they understand. They don't love their kerosene. They know all of the downsides of it and everything, so they understand the benefit of the clean energy and see the business opportunity of it. And so, the women, it's a free will opportunity. So we're not out there forcing anyone to be an entrepreneur, but we make it like an open hand opportunity. And if someone wants to be an entrepreneur, they'll apply. And then we provide training and support, and they start their business and off and running. So they're buying the products from us. We supply high quality, the best quality certified products that we're getting from a whole host of clean energy manufacturers that we do the testing, and we do make sure that they're all certified to be high quality products. And we smooth out all of the supply chain issues of bringing the products into the country and making sure that they're available right at the women's doorstep, so that they then take those products, they purchase an inventory, and then they sell them. They add a markup, which is the money that they keep, and then they sell them into their community. And once we have a few strong entrepreneurs in a community, we bring them together in what we call Sisterhood Groups, and they meet once a month. And at that monthly meeting, there's always a social time. They're bonding, they're getting together, they become good friends. But also, they really support each other. So a new entrepreneur might come into the group and be really struggling, and one of the more seasoned entrepreneurs will be able to help her to say, "Oh, I had that issue too, but now this is what I do about it." So they get a lot of support from each other. And as they're becoming entrepreneurs, as they're building their businesses and they're having the experiences, they're able to share that and celebrate it with each other, or commiserate with each other, or, it provides a sense of belonging, which is so important. Being an entrepreneur anywhere in the world is really a challenge and can be really discouraging. But if you've got a group of sisters there with you, that's what's going to help you get through the difficult times, and that's what's going to make it really rewarding to celebrate the good times. And then at that sisterhood meeting, our staff member, who's called a business development associate, also provides training. So we have developed a training program that helps the women. Most of the women are, or many of the women have maybe a primary education, and that would be the level of education that they're starting out this business with. And so what we're providing with this training is really a very practical business education of here's how to run a business, here's how to run this particular business, here's what the products and the technology are about, and here's what the benefits are, and then here's what these particular products that you can sell are. Sales, best practices, here's how to sell. So it's everything about business, but it's also, we provide training around the technology, and then we provide training, what we call agency-based training. And this is really some of the softer skills, things like learning to problem solve and become a solution seeker, learning to look inward to yourself and understand your own value and worth and confidence, because that's the foundation that's going to help you build a business. Learning how to, once you've built your business and you become a success, and realizing that you're now a role model for others, kind of learning to make that leap from being a student to being a leader, and some of the skills that are required for, what's expected of someone who's a leader, and how do you live into that. So it's all about business, all about technology, and all about these agency-based topics that go through this training program.
I love it so much. I have often said that entrepreneurship is the best personal development program you'll ever embark on, because you have to come to know yourself, right? Your values and how you want to step into leadership. So I love that that's a part of it too. And it's just another layer of that holistic solution that you're offering, supporting humans, clean planet, health and air quality, empowering women, providing economic benefit is just a huge holistic stack. And I love that. So we're going to take a quick break right now. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Katherine a little bit more about herself. And we're back here on the Power Flow podcast. Today, we're talking to Katherine Lucey of Solar Sister. And I'm just fascinated by the tremendous complexity, but also kind of simplicity of this holistic solution that's supporting humans and planet. But so I wanted to ask you, Katherine, about kind of the genesis of this idea. You're the founder of Solar Sister. How did that happen?
That's a really good question. I was working for years in banking. I was in Wall Street in the energy sector doing financing for large-scale power plants. And so that almost sounds like a logical step to then become running an energy business in Africa, but it's really not. What happened was I left banking and took a break, I guess, in my career, decided to stay home with the kids and spend some time there, and pretty quickly realized, well, that's great, but I needed something else to keep me busy. And my kids were kind of like, Mom, this is my science project. Could you go focus on something else, please? And so I decided to get out of their lives a little bit and focus on something that I was really interested in. And so I looked at the time, I was really fascinated by microfinance. This is around 2008, I guess, and microfinance was taking off. And I also had my background in energy. And I ended up coming across the Small Family Foundation that was doing rural electrification in off-grid communities in Uganda. And it sort of blended this idea of taking, microfinance is really about taking the financial tools and opportunities that we all have at sort of a big level and taking it down to this micro level. And this Family Foundation was really taking, the energy tools and opportunities that we have, we benefit from, and taking it down to this kind of micro level for schools and clinics in Uganda. And so that just really appealed to me. And I got involved with them and ended up on the ground in Uganda, literally climbing on roofs and, trying to put solar panels on thatched roof huts, and realized that what we were doing in some ways was both not entirely the right solution, but what we were doing was already creating such an impact for people's lives. One sort of story that really inspired, or one woman that I met that really inspired me, was this woman named Rebecca, who had a solar system installed on her home several years before. And we had gone back to just kind of check on her and see how she was doing and see how the solar system was doing. And, her story of taking that solar light, and she was the one who realized that if she put solar light in her chicken coop, in the room where she keeps her chickens, that her chickens would be able to see more, eat more, be healthier, lay more eggs. And those healthy chickens and the more eggs she was able to take to market, because she was able now not just to feed her family with eggs, but also have extra to take to market. And she earned enough money that she then invested in goats and cattle, and she grew this whole farm based on really the impact of that single light bulb on her chickens. And it was this incredible story of, the house that Jack built. She took the money from the eggs, invested in a goat, took the milk from the goat, invested in a cow. And she became so successful that the local community asked her to teach them what was she doing that was so successful. And she took them up on that, and she started a school and taught children, reading and math. And also she taught them sustainable farming. And so her local community asked her to teach them what had she learned. And she did just that. She started a school and taught children not just reading and math, but also sustainable farming and how to use clean energy to improve her farm outcomes. So, here we were 10 years later, and the room that had originally been the chicken room had now been turned into a dormitory room for children who were coming to her school. And they were still using that same light fixture, but now instead of keeping the lights on for the chickens, it was allowing the students to study at night. And that incredible story really inspired me to think about, okay, this is transformational. How do we do more of this? At the time, solar panels and batteries and inverters were fairly expensive. And how can we make this happen so that, it could be not just a few people, but there's so many people who need this. There's, it was at the time there were over 1 billion people in the world who didn't have access to energy. And so it's a huge problem. And we needed a way to bring this technology to people in a way that was affordable and sustainable. And really solving for that problem is what became the beginning of Solar Sister. And so the thinking about how do we make it sustainable, and we needed to not just use philanthropy to do that, because you run out of philanthropy. There's just not enough money in the world, philanthropic money in the world, to solve a 1 billion people problem. So it's got to be more of a market-based solution. And so if we're going to make it market-based, it was really fortunate right at that time, the price of solar started dropping just precipitously. So all of a sudden, it became affordable. And also at that time, some people started designing products that instead of like a big solar panel with battery inverter and wires and all this kind of thing, all of a sudden we had this product-sized solar. So that meant that someone who really did just need a small solar light could buy it for an amount that instead of spending $500 on a system, they could buy a $5 light. And so that opened up the potential that this could be something that was done through a market-based system. And so then it's kind of, you go down the next step. Okay, if we're doing a market-based system, then who's our customer? Who's going to buy this? And looking around, it's the women in the household who are currently the ones walking to town to fill up the Coca-Cola bottle with kerosene. Those are your customers. Those are the women that we needed to want to buy a solar light instead of kerosene. And if they're our customer, how do we reach them? And so the way we reach them is by making the product available in their community. They're not going to travel somewhere to go get this. There's no Amazon Prime that's going to deliver it. It's got to be available right there in their community. And because it's a technology and it's a new technology, and these are very risk-averse customers, they don't have a lot of money to spend to begin with, and they're not very technology savvy. They haven't had experience of a lot of technology. How do we make sure that they not only will benefit from this product, but will demand the product and really want the product? And so that became this women-to-women network of distribution, because one woman who's a neighbor telling another woman, I use this product myself. I am really loving it. I no longer cough. My baby, is sleeping better now because she's not congested. I'm able to use it as I go out at night and check on my farm. Or, one woman telling another woman how much she's benefited from it is the very best technique for sales. They don't want to hear about how many watts is it or how many lumens is it, or because who knows what that even means. But to know that, you know what, I now have a solar light and my daughter is studying every single night and she's now first in her class. Well, I tell you what, every other woman in that community is going to want one. So it's that really connection from one woman to another that has made this successful.
When you say that telling them how many watts or lumens it is isn't an effective sales technique, I feel called out because I'm the engineer and I'm like, but I want to tell you the wattage. Like, come on, no, I love it. I love it. And I think the question that you asked, I think it was after Rebecca's farm story, saying this is transformational. How do we do more of this? Like that just hit me as like the most powerful question, more of this, please. And inviting in something new, inviting in the new idea, the new opportunity, and then just watching it organically build from there. That's really inspiring.
Well, thank you. It's, I always think of, I got kind of drawn into this because it was really the problem that was in front of me. It sounds unlikely being someone, I was living here in the United States but in traveling and seeing the incredible need and access to energy and just my background really led to, I'm a problem solver and, I understood about energy and energy access at the big infrastructure level that, no country comes into the modern era without access to energy. And then having traveled and seen at the household level what that looks like, it really became just this problem right on my, right in front of me that I couldn't let go of and started thinking about, well, then how do we solve for that? Someone should really do something about this. Why isn't someone doing something about this? And, and someone should. And then thinking about, well, what if we just tried this one thing? What if we had women to sell these products in their communities and, products that were really high quality that could replace these lamps? And what if we did that? And so I worked with a local woman in Uganda, Sarah Kusuli, who was head of the Mothers Union. And the Mothers Union is like the church ladies of Uganda. It's the Anglican church in every community they're in has a Mothers Union committee. And these are the women that honestly rule the world. The men have the political power, the men may have the economic power, but when you go into a rural community, it's the women who have the social power. Everything kind of happens because they're making it happen. And so we reached out to some of these Mothers Union committee ladies and offered them a box of these lamps and said, what if we were to, could you sell these? Here's what they do. Here's how you use them. Gave them a little tutorial. And would you be able to sell these? And when we got back, we left them with a box of lamps. And by the time we got home, they'd already called. The very first entrepreneur who did this, her name was Lydia. Lydia called and said, and now what? I was like, I hadn't actually thought that far. I don't know now what. What are we going to do now? This was really just an experiment to see if it would work. And it did work. And from that point on, it was like, okay, so, well, send us the money that you collected in selling those lamps and we'll give you a whole new box of lamps. And then we began this kind of rolling inventory of providing the lamps. And pretty quickly that was that took off. And then more women were interested and they wanted to sell lamps too. And, then they wanted to sell cook stoves and then the home systems. And so it's been very much being drawn into this because of the demand. And not to say it hasn't been a lot of hard work and not to say that we don't encounter challenges or problems because every day we do. But it's really the energy and the commitment and the forward momentum of Solar Sister comes from the local Solar Sister entrepreneurs.
Awesome. So switching gears just a little bit, here on Power Flow, we like to dream big about the future. And so I guess maybe it's not switching gears because, we're talking about kind of the organic growth and being led by the demand and into a future. But let's take a look, into the crystal ball, into the future. A lot of times here on Power Flow, we're talking about, what do you feel are the biggest challenges standing between kind of us, humanity, and a clean energy future? And I am interested in that, but we also are really interested in issues of energy equity, and the belief that access to electricity is a human rights issue, because of the way it supports health and life and productivity and education and all of the other things that support humans, right? Coming into the donut. And so I'm sort of curious your take, maybe from both angles, from your chair, because you sit at this really cool intersection of clean energy technology and also energy equity. What are the biggest challenges we're facing as we turn toward the future and say, yes, please, how do we get more of this?
I think one of the things I've learned in this is from the women, from the Solar Sister entrepreneurs, is how their lives are already so impacted by climate change. Most of the women are living in communities that have seen droughts or weather changes that has affected their primarily agricultural lifestyles. And so they know very, very well that climate change is not some future what if scenario, but it is right here, right now. It's already affecting their lives. They're already seeing, really devastating consequences of it for their farms, for their lifestyles. And so their understanding of doing something about climate change is so immediate that, when they understand that replacing kerosene with, instead of burning so much fuel, firewood fuel, and replacing that with a more efficient cook stove, they've already realized that it has become harder and harder and harder. They have to go further and further and further to collect that firewood. So they're already on board sort of with we need to do something about climate change. And so their energy around it and their, willingness to get active now to do something is just inspiring. And I think the biggest challenge we have with regard to climate change and with regard to a clean energy transition is, I think, in our more privileged Western world, we're often buffered from the impacts. We live in our air-conditioned homes, and so it's not as evident that the planet's getting hotter. You just turn up the air conditioning. We don't have to walk miles to go get firewood. We just, fire up the stove. And so I think the inertia caused by our privilege is one of our biggest challenges. And so I ask that all of us learn from the Solar Sister entrepreneurs and really look to them as the leaders in this collective action of clean energy is the future. Clean energy has to be now so that we do have a future.
I'm really glad you said that about our place of privilege and the shielded perspective, because I do feel, even as setting aside for a minute, laymen and, average consumers here in the United States, but in the industry, I feel like from the United States perspective, we take a very United States centric view of, if we just add more grid scale stuff. And that's what was occurring to me when you were talking about the lamps, we didn't need big panel systems with big batteries and wires and complex controllers and all of that. We needed a light that you could set outside and bring in when you need it. I think there's an attitude out there of just replace fuel-based generation assets with grid scale renewables and we're done. Like, what else, what else do we need to do? And so I think that is a perspective of privilege. I think it is a very Western focused. And I love that idea. Like how do we engage with people around the world who are living in different situations, but recognizing that these problems are global problems and will require global solutions and therefore require global perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And from an equity point of view, it's women and children who bear the brunt of the negative impacts of climate change and of the, when there's weather disasters, it's women and children often who are the least mobile, able to get out of the way or to, unable to relocate or, have resources to help them through that situation. And so it's especially important that we recognize that those who are bearing the brunt of this may have less resource to do anything about it. And yet, when we look at, Solar Sister entrepreneurs, they've taken it in their own hands. They are the positive agents of change here. So they're not just, although they are the most likely to be the negatively impact, they haven't let that stop them from doing something about it. They're
amazing. Well, I could literally talk to you for hours. I have so many more questions. And so I hope this is only the beginning of a conversation with Solar Sister, because I believe that you're right. I believe that there's more to this, that the Solar Sister team of entrepreneurs, the Solar Sister ecosystem is leading the change we need to see in the world. And so I hope that this starts and continues more conversations. I did want to ask you before we wrap up, though, one more question, kind of logistically. You had mentioned there's not enough philanthropy dollars. It has to have a market-based piece to it. And I love that empowering these women to be entrepreneurs and to own their own business and to learn all of that business savvy is part of the mission. But how does Solar Sister is a nonprofit that's based here in the United States. And so how do you engage with donors or philanthropic organizations? What does that look like?
Yeah. So we are a nonprofit because although we are building a business distribution ecosystem, the investment that goes into building that ecosystem, and specifically the investment in supporting the women and giving them the training to bring them up to where they can be active and thriving businesswomen, is a philanthropic support needed. And so we use philanthropy, we use donor dollars to really invest in the women, and that investment is then repaid not in the form of profits back to us or to the investors, but that investment is repaid in the form of impact to the women and to their communities. And so it's like a way of investing in their communities and investing in the women themselves.
Awesome. So with that, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
This is going to take all of us. Climate change is the biggest issue of our time right now, and existential one. And women's economic equality is, I would say, the number 2 issue of our time. And so these 2 issues, which are at the forefront of Solar Sister, are only going to change when we all come together and make it happen. And so we invite everyone listening to this to join us and join us in this work of clean energy access, clean energy transformation, and women's economic opportunities, and really pushing these forward so that we're going to see the change that we need to see in the world.
Awesome. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. Where can people find you and Solar Sister if they want to engage?
Sure. We are online at www.solarsister.org. We're on Twitter at solar_sister, Instagram at I am Solar Sister. So check us out on any of those. We'd love to have you join us.
Excellent. Listeners, thank you today for joining us and giving us an hour of your time. We are so grateful for that. And we hope that this has sparked something inside of you and that you're inspired to go out and see what works, see what's transformational, and ask, how can we do more of that? I'm your host, Amy Simpkins. We'll see you next time here at the Whiteboard.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Power Flow podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share the episode with other innovators, leave us a positive review, and subscribe to Power Flow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find show notes for this episode, more great conversations, Power Flow merchandise, and more at powerflowpodcast.com. Power Flow is hosted by Amy Simpkins, produced by Devin Shonchuk, and managed by Laura Novak. See you next time here at the Whiteboard.